When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
For all you listeners out there that are menstruating, if you cannot have all your meetings on the last day of your cycle or the first day of your cycle, meaning the last day before you get your period or the first day of your period, it's the best thing you can do because your body isn't wired at that time to be on it and articulate. It's an internal yin moment, and your whole month will go better if you just honor that.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 400 with guest Jen Racioppi. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you're here. And if you are someone who listens to this show in real time, in other words, the day that it comes out, then you're in luck because tomorrow, August 5th, Thursday, I have a free webinar that I'm doing. Haven't done one of these in a long time, and it is for anyone who has pre-ordered my new book that comes out at the end of August. Make Some Noise. It's one of the many pre-order bonuses that I have that we're offering. And just head on over to andreaowen.com/noise. All the information is over there. This particular webinar, it's live, but if you can't make it, no worries. There will be a recording. It's all about self-confidence. And I'm talking about some research, but it's not boring, I promise. I'm talking about how do we create more self-confidence? Does it just appear one day? Do we just hang out with people who are confident? No, I'm going to tell you how. I have a method called the TSA method that I'm going to be going over and teaching you at that webinar. Again, andreaowen.com/noise. I hope to see you there. It's going to be intimate. You can interact with me. I cannot wait to see you. And speaking of making some noise, starting next week, I have a special series. I have hand-selected 7 amazing women who I, through knowing them personally as a colleague or a friend, or just watching them online and sort of plucked them out of the online social media space, have watched them make some noise in their life in different areas. And I wanted to interview them and specifically ask, how? How do you do it? How do you take up space in the world without questioning everything? How do you get past the conditioning and socialization that we've all received as girls and women to be a certain way? How do you do that? How did you do it? I wanted to know. Those are the questions that I asked them. And it starts next week with Susan Hyatt is coming on the show. And I can't wait for you to listen to this series. It's all building momentum and in celebration of Make Some Noise that comes out on August 31st. I want to mention this as well. I mentioned it several podcast episodes back, but it's worth repeating. The reason that authors, y'all know I like to be transparent. I'm just going to tell you the truth. The reason that authors put so much energy into book bonuses and begging and pleading and asking people to pre-order their book is because of this. There is really no other metric that can predict a book's success like pre-orders. So publishers are watching that number very closely, and especially retailers are looking at that number very closely. So if I want my book to be in Target, if I want it to be in more bookstores, if I want it to be in airports, then you have to reach a certain number that very first week that the book comes out. So any any pre-order, whether you purchased it back when I announced it was available for pre-order, I think in May. Yeah, that's when it was available, in May, up until the very first week that it comes out, that first week of September, because it actually, pub date is what we call it. It's August 31st. That number is going to be considered what was sold the first week the book came out. And again, that is a very important number. Personally, I loathe metrics. Like, I hate that so much is riding on things like that. Oh, I hate when things have to be measured because if it's a lot, then it's scary. If it's not enough, it's also scary. I know I should be better about actually looking at these numbers, but I let my team do that and just do what I do best. All that to say, it helps so much. I know sometimes we're like, I'll get around to it. I'll buy it when the book comes out, or, in a couple months from now when the kids go back to school. So if that's you, I just want you to know the reason that we beg and plead for pre-orders and why there's so much emphasis put on it. So I would be so incredibly grateful if you come to this podcast and I have entertained you ever, if I have made you laugh, if I have taught you anything, if you have learned from any of the guests that have come here, I would so appreciate if you pre-ordered a copy of Make Some Noise. I can't wait for you to read this book, truly. Every book has its own sort of story personally of how it comes to life. This book, as I've mentioned, has some very personal, gut-wrenching stories and anecdotes from me, and I felt like it was necessary. This is a little bit of a deeper topic than my other ones. I don't know. Writing about shame in my last book was kind of a big deal. But yeah, this one, it's a whole new category. And I can't wait for you to read it. I hope you love it. And just thank you for being a part of this community. I can't thank you enough. I can't. I'm so incredibly grateful for you. Okay, Jen Racioppi is here. She and I have been online friends for a long time. We spoke at Soul Camp in 2015 together. We met in real life then, and I am finally getting around to having her on the show. I love the work that she does. It's so incredibly fascinating. And for those of you that don't know who she is, let me tell you a little bit about her. Jen Racioppi is a certified Duke integrative medicine health coach, a holistic health counselor, a positive psychology coach, and an astrologer. Since 2017, Racioppi has written Well and Good's weekly cosmic health column. Her work has been featured in Cosmopolitan Magazine, Mind Body Green, Forbes, Business Insider, The Numius, Netflix Family, and Airy. Her first book, Cosmic Health, was released in January 2021. So without further ado, here is Jen.
Jennifer, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's such an honor. I'm really excited.
I want to start by asking you about, so I was on your website and I was reading about your about page, and you had something that happened to you health-wise when you were very young. I was eating chocolate-covered almonds and I literally one fell out of my mouth. I was like, oh my God, something that happened to you when you were very young. So can we start there and you tell us, and I have no idea if that's what brought you into the work that you do now, but can you give us a little history?
Yeah. So it absolutely brought me into the work I do now. When I was a teenager, I had really difficult periods, menstrual cycles, totally dysfunctional. Spent much of my teenage, high school years in and out of gynecologist office, just trying to find answers, just looking for what could make my periods regular and sound and me not feel depressed and in so much pain because they were really horrific. And I was just always told hey, you're a normal teenager. Here's the pill. This will help you out. Here's an antidepressant that will help you out. And then it was maybe 6 weeks after I graduated high school that I was I fell to the floor in the most horrific pain and ended up crawling myself to the phone because I was there by myself to get an ambulance to go to the hospital. And I had a tumor the size of a bowling ball erupt in my left ovary that needed to be immediately removed, which then had a pathology report come back that said it was stage 1 ovarian cancer. And I went through many tests and surgeries and exploratory surgeries and repath. And they basically came back to me and said, actually, this isn't really ovarian cancer. This is something that's mimicking cancer. We're going to watch it, go back on the pill and off to college you go. And
so they left the tumor in there, or did
no. They had removed so I had my left ovary fallopian tube removed with the tumor. Okay. They did lots of exploratory surgeries to found that there was like nothing that spread, and what came up on the pathology report didn't warrant chemo, essentially.
Okay.
And so that was like, actually it was July 22nd, 1997. And then I was in college by September of 1997.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And just back on the pill, back on like antidepressants or whatever.
Pill's just going to solve all of our problems, right?
And I was like, and I was traumatized like that because I had already had so many, body issues and period issues and the whole thing was just totally traumatizing for me. So I went to college and I was kind of, I was fine, but not really great and sort of just like getting through the year, but I wasn't happy. And I really wasn't happy. I was like kind of depressed and just not feeling great. So I had made plans to transfer colleges because I thought being in a different state, being in a different school would really help me. And I was, had made it through the summer prior to this transfer. And it was like literally 2 to 3 weeks before I was like, heading off to this new school, which was going to be a whole fresh start for me. And I had like a routine doctor's appointment. They were very routine because they were watching me pretty closely at that time. And they found something suspicious, did the biopsy, sent it off. And, for me, I wasn't really expecting much because I don't know, I was at the doctor all the time with getting things probed and wands and scepters, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I was like, whatever, it's going to come back fine. And it didn't. It came back as an aggressive endometrial cancer that required immediate response and intervention. So that led to having had a radical hysterectomy in August of 1998.
Mm-hmm. So you were 20 at that point.
No, I think I was 19.
19.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was 19 because I had the problem with the ovary and there was the potential for ovarian cancer that was just like very curious to them. They were like, yeah, we got to take out this other ovary as well, which for anyone is a really big deal to not have ovaries, right. Because our ovaries are, aside from the fertility function, produce our hormones. And so when we don't have functioning ovaries, we don't have anywhere in our body to generate the right amounts of predominantly estrogen, though there's a mix of things that are happening there. Not really prepared for that. No one really told me about it. It was more like, well, do you plan on having kids? That sort of conversation. And meanwhile, I'm a teenager, so I don't know. It was the 90s. They couldn't freeze eggs at that time. It was before egg freezing was an option. So the primary conversation with my doctors was essentially like, how do you feel about not having kids? Because you're basically going to surrender your ability to have kids, but stay alive. And I didn't really have much time to decide. And, there was a lot happening in a really short period of time. Based on best opinions, et cetera, and really this fact that I wanted to live, and it seemed pretty threatening if I didn't. I had my additional ovary removed, as well as my uterus, cervix, right fallopian tube. Yeah, and they took out my appendix too, for good measure.
Just for free?
We're in there. It was another one.
Oh my gosh. So that sends you into menopause, correct?
Yeah.
As a teenager.
Yeah. So it was what they call parachute menopause, where you just immediately land into menopause. And menopause is a thing, man. It's a thing. And it was particularly a thing for a teenager who never really actually even had a healthy, regular menstrual cycle. So after I had that surgery, things just got friggin' weird. So weird, hot flash weird, cognitive. I mean, I was disassociating. I was having a hard time reading and writing. I was having a hard time articulating thoughts. And then panic attacks set in because I couldn't keep up with my schoolwork. I couldn't socialize. And then they just kept getting weird. And I was on this like downward slope of weird for a pretty, maybe like 9 or 10 months. And I just realized that I was going to have to tear down my life and build it back up. I took a leave of absence from college. I financially emancipated myself from my family, and I moved to California to restart my life. And, it's just funny because now it's like if I had that kind of a health crisis, I'd be Googling answers.
Right.
reading, but in the 90s, that didn't exist. There were no wellness blogs. There were no wellness influencers. Social media hadn't existed. There was no community. So I just went searching for like, what the hell went wrong with my body? And what is going wrong with my body now? Why can't I breathe? Why am I freaking out with like crazy sweat attacks? What is all this? Yeah. And that eventually led me to figuring out that the moon's rhythm mirrors the menstrual rhythm. And that if I could just start honoring the moon, it sounds so strange, I might be able to get a handle on this very dysfunctional biological response to not having ovaries.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I have so many questions. I don't even know which direction I want to go in.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. Fast forward to the end of 2024 and think about your goals. What can you do right now to give yourself the best chance of succeeding? If you want to learn a new language, you absolutely should get Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Now it's so easy to speak simple conversation phrases with the guy that takes care of my lawn without having to consult language apps. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/noise. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/noise, spelled BABBEL.com/noise. Rules and restrictions may apply.
I think I want to start with that last thing that you talked about because, and it sounds like there were a lot of other things at play, with your family, in your personal life. It wasn't just your physical body that was really struggling. There were a lot of other issues. You were so young and moving and just your whole future gets sort of like thrown in your face and you have to make very grown up decisions that you just probably aren't prepared for. And how in the world, did you have a divine download? Was there a book that just fell from the sky? How do you land on that about the moon?
Yeah.
Did you always have an interest before, or was it brand new?
Oh God, no. I mean, yeah, you have to picture me as I read horoscope books and I was really into, what were they? They're animal cards or tarot cards with animal pictures on it, that sort of thing. And I was curious, but really I was basically a very tomboy surfer, skater, snowboard girl who was very disconnected in all ways. So what happened was that I was just really obedient to whatever brought me joy. That was basically how I navigated that time. And I had moved to Lake Tahoe from San Diego to teach ski lessons and snowboard. So that was a good winter, it kept me occupied, gave me something to focus on. It was super fun. At that point, I was 21. So, being a snowboarder and ski instructor in Lake Tahoe when you're 21, it's not really that bad of a gig. But it was the end of the season. It was actually the middle of summer, and I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I had to figure out college. I had all these college acceptance letters, and I just was lost. I had no idea where to go or what to do. And so I stumbled into like a metaphysical bookstore, and there was a tarot reader there. And I was like, well, I guess I'll get my cards read. And she just like laid it out for me. She's like, hey, here's this deal. You've been through like this hell with your health. You might have something else in your life that looks like that again. As a matter of fact, it looks dire. It's like, this is what she says to me. I'm like, fuck.
Oh my God.
And then she's like, but there's this whole other path here for you that's really interesting. She's like, you gotta like move forward with your life, find some new direction, do what you really want to do, and it's going to be okay. And I was like, well, that sounds like, are you going to sell me something now, $900, and you'll take away the bed? Like, where are we going with this lady?
Oh my gosh.
But what she threw down after that was, you have to start working with the moon. And I was just like, it's like, moon, like what's
become an astronaut? Like,
yeah. I had literally no idea. And, but she said enough to me that like made sense. And she said to me, she's like, I want you to just like, let's do another session, but I don't want you to come back until you know what you want to do. Like, what do you want to do? Because until you know what you want, you're really just a bit lost. And I was just like, oh God. So she challenged me. And it turns out she, the story is like that she basically saved my life, and she was really amazing. And I think I don't know if she's on the planet anymore because I can't find her, but she was the type of person who like never went to she was in San Francisco once, and she lived on like the west shore of Lake Tahoe, and like this like house that was like, who lives here? Fairies. And then other than that, spent time living with the Hopi Indians, American Indians, Native Americans. She's just this person that lived her own way and was like really one of the only truly spiritual people I think I've ever met in my whole life. No frills, just to the bone truth in all dimensions of her lifestyle. Like so psychically open, she couldn't really even be in the city. So anyway, she's like, you got to go figure out what it is you want to do. And once you figure that out, you can come back and we'll like talk more. And I ended up walking across the street from that store into the Tahoe City Library, and I pulled out like a book on colleges, and I just kind of opened it up, and I went to San Francisco State University, which I had already applied to and been accepted. Like I had a number of college acceptance. San Francisco State University was not at all on my radar. It was like, it wasn't at all one of my top choices. But I opened the book up, and I was like, went right to like a creative writing program. And I was like, this is really what I want. Like, cause I wrote a lot, but I was going to school for all these complicated things and thought I was going to become a lawyer. And anyway, so there was like this, like straight to the heart truth in that. I'm like, is that possible? Could I go to school and just do what I want and write? And like, I researched the school, I researched the program. It was actually one of their strongest programs. It was a great program. I'd already had a college acceptance there. And it was like basically going to be almost free because I was a California state resident. Like this feels weird. So I sat with it and I'm like, I think I want to like move to San Francisco, but like it was 2001 and there was a big .com boom happening. So I was like, I don't really know how I live there because there's people making like multiple six figures couch surfing and I like make $8.75 an hour, like, it was kind of a problem. So anyway, I went back to her and I was like, I think I know what I want to do. I want to move to San Francisco and I want to pursue this writing path. But like, I don't know how I'd live there or like how this would all come together. And then that's where she's like, okay, well, we're going to teach you this thing about working with the moon's phases and like, making magic in your life, and it's just like, what the fuck is this woman talking about? But she had spoken enough truth to me. I was like, all right, I'll explore this a little bit more with her. And I ended up going to her house and doing some work with her, and things just started like opening up and clicking. And it turns out I got an apartment in San Francisco for like $400 a month. It was a roommate situation. It was really close to college. And it was like 3-4 blocks from the beach, which at the time was like not where you want to be in San Francisco because it's foggy and weird. But for me, it was like, I love fog and I love weird and I love the ocean. I was like, whoa, wait, I live right so close to the beach. Like, this is awesome. And I went to San Francisco State and she mentored me for a few years after that. But the moon kept coming back up. So then I started working with an Ayurvedic practitioner who did my Vedic chart. And he was like, you got to work with the moon. It just became this thing.
Just all things pointing towards working with the moon. Well, in 2001, that was 20 years ago. And I think now people are a little bit more open to the topic, but I feel like back then people might have looked at you like you had two heads. Like, what are you
going to yoga about? Was weird back then.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. I remember because you also teach about circadian, what is it called? Circadian method or rhythm?
Circadian rhythms.
Thank you. You can tell this is not my wheelhouse, but I'm fascinated by it. And just, kind of like monthly and annual and maybe like seasonal rhythms. Can you give us kind of like the crash course on that?
All right. So it's biological rhythms, and there's a field called chronobiology that's really hip to studying these things and has really taken off in recent years because of a Nobel Award on research on the circadian rhythm. But the circadian rhythm is our 24-hour rhythm. And it's like we wake up in the morning and our melatonin decreases, our cortisol rises, we get some energy, and then in the evening things reverse and we wind down, right? Like essentially that's the most basic bottom line, almost elementary description of what the circadian rhythm is. When we synchronize with light dark cycles, it works best. So our circadian rhythm is run on an endogenous clock inside of us, meaning there's a clock that has this wake sleep pattern that it does it on its own, right? Like, so if you are someone who is a shift worker, right, and you work in the night, your circadian rhythm will adjust to your sleep cycles. It doesn't absolutely have to be synchronized with light and dark, dictated by rising and setting of the sun. But when it is, it works best, right? Mm-hmm. So our circadian rhythm is our daily rhythm, and it synchronizes with the Earth's rotation on its axis, its daily rotation on its axis. And, we evolved as a species on an Earth that rotates daily. And so our adaptations have formed in response to these basic geophysical cycles that guide Earth, right? We have them in our biology. So that's one of our cycles. We have another cycle called the circadian rhythm, which is when we think about what the Earth is doing every day, it's rotating, but it's also orbiting the sun. Mm-hmm. And so we have this annual orbit we do around the sun, and, it gives us different experiences of what it means to be here on Earth based on where we are in the orbital pattern around the sun, aka seasons. And so we have a natural adaptation to the fluctuations of light and dark, warm and cold, what's available in our local environment based on food, lifestyle adaptations that follow seasonal cycles. So that's our annual rhythm. But there's one more rhythm, and this is the rhythm I really needed to heal because I, obviously had my whole gynecological situation blow up. And it's the circamonthly or the circalunar rhythm, which is a monthly rhythm that has a waxing and a waning, right? Mm-hmm. So women who are in their healthy reproductive cycles have this experience through their period, right? Generally once a month, you'll ovulate. Generally once a month, you'll menstruate. And then there's a follicular phase, which is the period between menstruation and ovulation, where your hormones are preparing for your body to potentially get pregnant. And then there's the luteal phase between ovulation and your period on the backside. Whereas if you don't get pregnant, your body sheds the uterine lining, gets ready to shed the uterine lining, and restart the whole cycle again. Happens anywhere, cycle lengths for menstrual cycles are there's it could be 21 days, it could be 35 days. That's still in the realm of health. But generally speaking, the average is about 29, 30, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's similar to the length of the moon. So there's a lot of scientific debate right now over whether we as humans have an endogenous clock that developed as an adaptation to the moon's rhythmic cycle in the way that we have an endogenous clock that developed in it as an adaptation to the daily cycle or the yearly cycle. Though the yearly cycle, actually, I don't believe is endogenous. So I hold my breath there. But the circulunar clock is under scientific debate in humans. But we know that animals, particularly fish, marine life, lots of the plant kingdom actually have an endogenous clock that works in synchrony with the moon. And we live on a planet that where so much of life on this planet is proven to be responsive to the fluctuations of the moon throughout the month. And so based on my own work, which is synchronizing my life to the phases of the moon in absence of a period, and having taught this to thousands and thousands of people over the years, I'm pretty friggin' convinced that whether we have an endogenous clock or not, it doesn't friggin' matter because we do. Like we cycle with the moon, basically, on some level.
People who menstruate have had the experience of feeling either, very aroused during ovulation or very, very tired, either right before their period or during. I mean, I started actually, and I'm lucky enough to have a job where I can do this. I recently started blocking off time in my calendar when I know that my period is coming, because as a 45-year-old woman, I get so tired the first and second day of my period. I can barely it happened because I had like 4 of these interviews in a day, and it was the first day of my period one month. And I was like, never again. I can't even stay awake, and it's not fair to my guests. And so I started blocking it out on my calendar. So I have the experience where, yes, it matters. And
oh yeah,
it just makes sense.
Yeah. For all you listeners out there that are menstruating, if you cannot have all your meetings on the last day of your cycle or the first day of your cycle, meaning the last day before you get your period or the first day of your period, it's the best thing you can do because your body isn't wired at that time to be on it and articulate. It's an internal yin moment, and your whole month will go better if you just honor that.
Yeah, I believe it. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. What are the kind of struggles that people come to you with when they want to work with you? Like, what in the world is somebody typing into Google where they come across Jennifer Racioppi's name and your website and are like, I need to work with her?
I rank really high in SEO for like moon rituals, moon ritual magic, that sort of thing. So people come to me like, cause they're like, what's this moon thing? It's really caught trend. Honestly, I don't know if people really Google me to find me like in a professional capacity. Maybe they do. I think that they Google me and they're like, what is this? And then they stick around and then they get my content, or they find me on Instagram and then they're like, I'd be interested in working with her. What is she up to? I think that they find me and then they hang out for a while and then they develop a connection to me and they want to work with me. I also have been doing this professionally. I think I went like fully into this in like 2012. As like a profession, obviously I'd studied and practiced and taught. I've been teaching this since 2001. Like basically I got to San Francisco State and I was like, all right, I learned this thing. And like, if you're my friend, you're going to learn it too, and then from there, it's just snowballed. My business has been sold out based on word of mouth recommendations. So I don't know. I'm not that great at business.
But I'm great at moon cycles.
But I am a business coach. But I mean, in my own business, like it's just like, I just kind of have, I've been at full capacity since day one. And I don't know what I did to make that happen or how it sustains itself other than it just does.
Yeah. I bet that tarot card reader lady would know. Tell us about rituals, and you say that that's an important part of cosmic health. Tell us about that.
I mean, we all have rituals, right? Like we brush our teeth,
coffee in the morning,
walks or talks with friends. And so we only have so much willpower. We actually don't have much willpower at all. And once we use it up, it's like gone. And so the idea of rituals and rhythmic living is this idea that we entrain ourselves into a habit or a routine that then serves us, right? And so it's like entrainment. And once we entrain ourselves to things, it takes no willpower to do it because we brush our teeth. Like when I fall asleep on the couch and don't brush my teeth, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's a gross feeling in the morning. I don't feel good about myself. And it's like, but I don't question that, right? Because I'm entrained to do it. And so rituals have many meanings. It can be like we said, like you work out at a certain time and a certain day, or you brush your teeth at a certain time or a certain day. And rituals have a whole other meaning, which is a time to really commune with your spiritual practice. We can entrain that too, right? So the rituals I teach are about honoring the moon's phases and life cycles via the seasons, the monthly rhythms via the moon. Obviously, I've gone really deep into astrology and it's become the essence of my existence. So I do much more complicated cycle watching now via the whole system of astrology. But if we can entrain ourselves to honor the cycles within the month with a spiritual practice that grounds us in our spiritual intuitive knowing and our desire, it becomes a hell of a lot easier to awaken consistently the part of ourselves that has a little bit more mystical inclination and do things our way.
So your book is Cosmic Health. And is it for someone like people of our audience who might be more just curious about these topics and the phases and astrology and things like that?
I'm super proud of the book. I'm super pumped on the book. I spent a lot of time writing it, obviously. And it was a really hard book to write because it's actually like a hybrid. So it's a book on positive psychology and integrative wellness told through the story of astrology. It's multivalent and it's very layered. And that said, it's very easy for the book to get techie in a way that wouldn't serve the reader. So the book is written in a way that was actually super challenging in terms of like structure, tone, voice, story, that it's meant to read really simply and also have a ton of meat in there for people who just want to live a healthier life with more ease. And that's really who the book is for. The concept of the book is that rhythmicity and cyclical living is one of the key pillars to our health. And going back to those 3 cycles, the circadian rhythm, circa annual rhythm and circle monthly rhythm, those 3 cycles are basically the foundation of astrology. Because astrology is really the study of Earth's daily rotation, Earth's yearly orbit, and the moon's cyclical journey around the sun. And then from there, we layer in the planets and how they travel around the sun according to our view from Earth. And we give it some archetypal meanings and some historical references for what these things mean. And boom, we have a system. But that's basically what astrology is the study of cycles and rhythms and how they correlate with our experiences of being here on Earth. But anyway, so the book is really for anyone who wants to have an easier time being healthy and for them, right? It's not about a diet. It's not about an exercise routine. It's about understanding who you are, what you want, where you're going, and how you're going to get there with the greatest sense of ease by working with and not against the cycles that guide our life, and understanding how those cycles live inside of us.
And this might sound so elementary, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I got curious about this topic years ago when I was standing on I'm from San Diego too. And I was in Carlsbad standing on the cliffs, and I was looking out at the vast ocean, which I had done many times, and thinking to myself how interesting it is that the similarities of salt water and how humans are made up mostly of water and a lot of salt, and how the moon has the power to change the tides. Like, it can pull these massive bodies of water every day without fail. And we're supposed to think that we're not connected to that in some way, that we're not at one. And I mean, this was a long time ago. I was sort of contemplating that. But at the same time, I was like, well, that's just weird. That's just woo woo. And so I'm always fascinated with people who do the work that you do, because it just, I don't know. I have some kind of inner knowing where it's just like, yes, this is all true. I still don't totally understand it, but I believe you.
I too have had those moments. And it's really interesting because the science actually really doesn't, it sort of debunks this idea that the moon is pulling us in some way that is similar to that which it does on the ocean. The reason why the tides are impacted by the moon, and, we have 2 tides every day, cyclical as well, is because of where the moon is in terms. So the Earth's rotating, the moon's going around the Earth, and therefore the moon's on a different side of the Earth at different times. And that's why we have high and low tide. We also have spring and neap tide, which spring tide is the tide at new moon and full moon that are stronger tides, whereas neap tides are, the waxing and waning phases of the moon, particularly the waxing quarter, waning quarter, where there's more of an even balance between them. So we definitely know that the moon and the ocean have this deep relationship, but is that same gravitational pull on the ocean really impacting us? We would feel it every time the tide shifted, right? We would feel it high to low tide, right? And we don't necessarily, we really aren't tidal in that way. We're cyclical, but not necessarily tidal. And what the science is showing now is that we're light responsive. And so the moon doesn't have light on its own. The moon reflects the sun's light back to us. And we see varying portions of the moon throughout the month because the moon is going around the Earth and the Earth is spinning on its axis. And therefore, the relationship between the moon and the sun is shifting. So we'll see more of the moon based on its alignment with the sun, and then we'll see less of the moon based on its alignment with the sun. Are you following me so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And I have a basic understanding of that. Very basic. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we go back to this idea that we have these rhythms, right? And so why do we have the circadian rhythm? Why are we responsive to the sun's rise and set in a way that our whole biology has responded to it? From an adaptation standpoint, it's because we're light responsive. And so at the time of the full moon, the sun and the moon are opposite, which means that the moon's rising while the sun's setting, which means that in the later phases of the waxing cycle, we're really getting the moon rise in the afternoon, and then the sunset is happening at the same time. But we're getting moonlight and sunlight for a portion of the day. And then when the sun goes down, we have lots of moonlight. And that's the science. That's what the science is showing now, is that we're light responsive. And when we have stronger light during the day in the waxing phases, and then more light at night when the moon's full, we are getting our neuroendocrinology basically is getting flooded with an additional source of light that has an impact on us. And again, this is sort of nascent. And to the point of your work, the reason why we don't have really good science on this is because the moon has such deep entrenchments with the divine feminine, witchcraft, aspects of feminine power that have not only been demonized, but completely removed from anything that has, a science-based backing in terms of something of interest. So biology has mostly been white men, and studying the moon validates witchcraft, essentially. I mean, I'm making a jump there, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't really have enough science on it at the end of the day. And what's happening now is we're getting a lot more science on it. Why? Because we have a lot more female biologists who have these same stinking questions that you and I are like, well, yeah, you're good. It sounds woo-woo. It's not woo-woo. It's chronobiology. There's millions and billions of dollars being sunk into research on it. We're behind the 8 ball on research on it because we've predominantly had a male-dominated community running biology since the inception of biology. And this stuff goes so deep that, including astrology, it goes so deep in the land of things that
it flies in the face of Christianity and
Christianity, patriarchy, white supremacy. I mean, all of the things. And so it's poorly researched at the end of the day.
Yeah. I didn't know that. And it makes a whole lot of sense. It's interesting to me how many misconceptions there are about witchcraft. Like, people hear that word, like, you want to see people get uncomfortable, you talk to them about witchcraft. I have found that to be true. Well, I could talk to you all day. I feel like I have so much to learn from you. And I know that I would love to have you back on if you're willing to do so. And we are going to drop the link to your book in the show notes. And it's available. Is it available also at bookstores, correct? And on Target.com, Amazon, all those places?
All the places. It's available in Canada, Europe, Australia, Mexico.
Okay, good.
Lots
for all of our listeners who are not here in the United States. Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say that you feel like you want to circle back on in order to feel complete?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is that, going back to the story of the woman giving me the tarot reading and like telling me like follow my passion was like a key to health, I just want to highlight and exclamate that point is like, it actually is a really important part of our health. And so, it may feel like this thing that's like secondary, but I just want to land it on like centering your pleasure and centering your purpose at the center of your health is essentially what I've learned is like the most foundational thing you can do for yourself. And that's basically like the essence of what cosmic health teaches. And that's been my experience.
That's such a great name for anything, but especially for a book, Cosmic Health. And like I said, we'll drop that in the show notes. Jen, thank you so much for being here. And listeners, thank you so much for joining us. You know that I value your time so much. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye, everyone. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the show. And I forgot to mention this in the intro, but I wanted to let you know, if you would love to have a signed copy of my book, but you don't ever see me, but you can't come to one of my events, we are doing something new for this go around with this book, with Make Some Noise, that's coming out in August. We're doing something called book plates. And basically it's a sticker that it's kind of like one of those name tag stickers that says, hello, my name is, and then there's a spot for you to write your name, except it says Make Some Noise on it. And then there's a spot for me to personalize and sign it for you. And I will snail mail it to you. So if you
bought a print copy of my book, or even an audiobook, and you have the workbook, the free workbook. Did I mention that? There's a free workbook. It's all on AndreaOwen.com/noise. If you printed out the workbook and you want that to be signed by me and personalized to you, same link, AndreaOwen.com/noise. There's a spot for you to fill out your mailing address, and I will sign a book plate for you and put your name on it and say a quick little prayer for you and how you can make some noise in your life. And it's just all these gifts. I just want you to have the world. Honestly, those of you that come to this show, I'm like, what can I do to make it more exciting? How can I make personal development more exciting for you and have you know that I am in your corner, that I am cheering for you, and that I want nothing more for you to be the hero of your own life and for you to make some noise. Sending you so much love. Big consensual hugs and kisses to you. And I will see you next week for our series of Make Some Noise.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.